Life doesn't always go as planned. There are moments when everything seems to fall apart. Financial stability lost, relationships shaken, dreams interrupted. In those moments, the sense of emptiness and helplessness can feel overwhelming, making it difficult to move forward. But every crisis carries within it the potential for transformation, a chance to rewrite your story with wisdom. When we face loss, inevitable questions arise. Why me? Or how can I start over? It is precisely in this space of uncertainty that deep reflection and self-awareness become powerful tools. Spiritist teachings remind us that suffering is not a punishment, but a stimulus for growth, allowing us to see beyond immediate circumstances. Starting over is not just possible, it is essential. In this video, you will follow the journey of a woman who lost everything and found the strength to rise again. Discover how she turned obstacles into lessons, pain into opportunity, and vulnerability into courage. Prepare to be inspired, reflect on your own choices, and learn how to apply these teachings to your life today. If you're ready to begin this journey of resilience, stay with us and see how a crisis can become your true rebirth. I never imagined my life could change so quickly. Everything seemed secure. My job, my savings, my plans for the future. But in a matter of days, the stability I had taken for granted crumbled like sandcastles in the wind. The financial crisis hit my family hard, drained our resources, and left an emptiness no material possession could fill. I felt lost, ungrounded, as if the world had turned against me. Every bill, every reminder, every worried glance from loved ones amplified my sense of powerlessness. I was trapped in a maze of uncertainty with no clear way out. First, I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was just a temporary phase, that everything would eventually work out, that I had the strength to face any challenge. But reality forced itself on me relentlessly. The material losses were obvious, but the deeper pain lay within. Fear, shame, anxiety, and doubts about my past choices. I questioned every decision I had ever made, revisited old mistakes, and wondered if I had what it would take to rebuild my life. Each night, the weight of failure felt like a heavy coat I couldn't shed. Loneliness became my constant companion. Friends seemed distant, absorbed in their own lives. My family worried, but they couldn't carry my frustrations for me. In the silence of my room, I realized I had to face not just the external situation, but my innermost feelings. The pain, as intense as it was, began to teach me about boundaries and what truly mattered. I recognized that financial stability could never replace the inner strength I still needed to awaken. It was in this state of vulnerability that I started reflecting on my existence. I had always believed in God, but I had never truly considered the meaning of suffering. Spiritist teachings appeared like a faint light in the darkness. Everything has a purpose, every challenge is an opportunity to grow, and every loss carries valuable lessons. I began to see that my fall was not a punishment, but an invitation to a deeper transformation. This realization brought a slight relief, a sense that I was not alone. Even as my mind tried to absorb these ideas, my heart rebelled. Anger and fear clashed with hope, leaving me in constant internal conflict. Every morning felt like a test of courage, every mundane task an extraordinary effort. Yet, I began noticing small signs that something new could emerge. Memories of old dreams, forgotten skills, ideas coming effortlessly to mind. I felt a force within me asking to be awakened, and I sensed that my fall could be the starting point for something greater. The first lesson was to accept the situation. Resisting reality only intensified my suffering. Acceptance didn't mean resignation, but acknowledgement of the facts and readiness to act with clarity. Every night I cried alone, every tear shed, was a silent preparation for a fresh start. I began journaling my feelings, reflecting on my thoughts, and seeking guidance in the works of André Luiz and Joanna de Angelis, finding comfort in the idea that life is continuous learning. I understood that rebuilding would start from within before manifesting in the world around me. By the end of this initial shock, I noticed a change. My perspective on life, on myself, and on the future was starting to shift. The fall hadn't destroyed me. It had unveiled my capacity for resilience. Clara, the woman I thought I knew, was transforming. I didn't yet know how to rebuild every aspect of my life, but I felt a spark of hope growing. For the first time, I began to see that a crisis could become an opportunity for rebirth, and that my inner strength would be the key to starting over. In the first days after the fall, the sense of failure was overwhelming. Every bill that appeared felt like a cruel reminder of all I had lost. When the phone rang, my heart would race, fearing new demands or bad news. I didn't know how to respond, often shrinking from reality as if hiding could make the problems disappear. But they didn't vanish. They were there, knocking at my door, demanding courage, while all I could feel was fear. The nights were long and silent. I tossed and turned in bed trying to sleep, but my mind kept replaying past mistakes, unnecessary spending, and impulsive decisions. Guilt became torment, as if I were my own harshest critic. I began to notice how much of other people's expectations I carried on my shoulders, and how my identity had been tied to what I owned. When all of that crumbled, what remained was me, stripped bare before the truth. I didn't know who I was without the things that defined me. The emotional weight was as heavy as the financial one. I felt ashamed to ask for help, as if my ruin were a stain revealing my incompetence. I often avoided loved ones, skipping gatherings to avoid having to explain the inexplicable. Pride kept me from the support I could receive, and that isolation plunged me even deeper into the abyss. I realized how the ego builds invisible barriers that keep us from light, and how suffering in its harshness can break those shields to reveal the essence of the self. It was in this fragile state that spiritual reflection began to make sense. I remembered a line from Emmanuel I had read once: "Pain is a divine agent of transformation." That phrase echoed in my mind every time I asked, "Why me?" Gradually, I realized I wasn't a victim of a cruel fate, but a participant in a larger process, where every experience, no matter how hard, played a role in my growth. This shift in perspective didn't erase the pain, but it opened cracks of understanding. I began to see that material life, important as it is only part of the journey. What would truly sustain me wasn't a bank balance, but the spiritual strength I nurtured within myself. That awareness was like a distant lighthouse in the storm. I was still in a boat rocked by waves, but at least I knew where to focus my gaze. In that moment, I decided that even through tears, I needed to take the first step toward something new. Still, the internal struggle persisted. The fear of failing, of disappointing, of never rising again, followed me daily. But between pain and learning, I began to recognize what truly mattered in my life. I understood that suffering doesn't destroy, it purifies. It strips away illusions and reveals what truly endures. Accepting that was difficult, but it gave me a new courage. If everything had fallen apart, it was time to rebuild on stronger foundations. The weight of ruin was still upon me, but it was no longer just destruction. I began to see this phase as a time of purification, a clearing away of illusions I had carried. Life was showing me that nothing external could guarantee my peace. This conclusion, though painful, was also liberating. Clara, the woman who thought herself defeated, began to see that failure could be a gateway. A gateway that, if I had the courage to cross it, would lead to a more authentic, coherent, and spiritually rich life. There were days when silence seemed to scream inside me. I would isolate myself, close the curtains, turn off my phone, and let hours pass unnoticed. Tears flowed uncontrollably, and sometimes I wondered if I still had the strength to get up. The weight of loneliness was overwhelming, as if the entire world had forgotten me. In reality, it was I who had withdrawn, unable to show my vulnerabilities. And in that emptiness, all that remained was facing my deepest pain. During those long hours of introspection, I began to question my choices. Had I truly lived according to my values? Had I allowed myself to be carried away by trivial ambitions and illusions of security? With every question, a knot tightened in my throat. It was painful to admit, but I realized that much of my life had been built on fragile foundations. The external collapse only revealed how far I had strayed from my true essence. Crying, as painful as it was, seemed to cleanse something within me. It was as if each tear washed away layers of pride and vanity I had cultivated unconsciously. At first, I saw only injustice and resentment, but gradually, the moments of silence revealed an opportunity for rebirth. Spiritist teachings helped me see that no suffering is wasted, and every experience, however bitter, carries a seed of transformation. I only needed to be willing to nurture it. It was during this period that I recalled a passage from the Spirit's book, which states, "Suffering is expiation of the past or a test for the future." This idea touched me deeply, as it made me realize that nothing was accidental. My pain was not punishment from a punitive God, but an invitation to evolve. This reflection didn't wipe away my tears, but it gave them meaning. It was as if, at the bottom of the darkness, a small flame began to illuminate my heart. Still, there were moments of profound helplessness. I felt fragile, like a child without direction, lost in a maze of conflicting emotions. Some days I wanted to give up, surrender to despair. But there was also a breath of hope, an inner voice saying, "Hold on, don't stop here." This voice, which I identified as intuition or perhaps spiritual inspiration, prevented me from sinking completely into hopelessness. Over time, I realized that silence was not my enemy, but an ally. It was in those quiet moments that I began to hear myself, without social masks, without external demands, without the need to appear strong. I discovered how much I had neglected my inner life, always busy showing achievements to the world. Silence revealed my true state and, at the same time, opened space for connection with something greater. I began to sense that spirituality was not a distant theory, but a living path present in the deepest part of me. Thus, between tears and silence, I began to notice that I was being guided toward a turning point. Clara, the woman who thought herself defeated, was learning to shed illusions and recognize her fragility as strength. There were no ready answers or immediate solutions, but a process was unfolding. I was transforming even without fully understanding how. And in this movement, I felt that pain was making room for a breath of hope that would soon become light. After so much time immersed in tears and silence, something different began to happen. It wasn't a sudden change or a miraculous solution, but small signs appearing along my path. A forgotten book on the shelf seemed to take on new meaning when I reread its pages. A memory of something I loved doing as a child returned to me like an invitation. Even a casual conversation with someone brought words that touched me unexpectedly. It was as if the universe was saying, "Rise up, life goes on." These signs were subtle, almost imperceptible at first. But the more I opened myself to notice them, the more frequent they became. A song about starting over, a sunset that moved me, a small act of kindness from a stranger. I, who had only seen ruins before, began to notice beauty in small things. It was as if life was showing me that there were still reasons to believe, even while problems remained. During this time, I felt the urge to write again. I took a simple notebook and began recording my feelings, my pain, and my small discoveries. Writing became a refuge, but also a mirror. When I reread my words, I saw that despite the suffering, there was a strength within me insisting on expressing itself. This simple practice brought clarity, and little by little, I began to reconnect with myself. It felt like rediscovering a part of who I truly was. I also noticed that some people appeared at the right moments. They didn't offer grand speeches, just small words of encouragement, gestures of kindness, or simple glances that conveyed understanding. I felt there was something greater at work behind these coincidences, as if guiding spirits were subtly leading me. This sense of unseen support was comforting. I no longer felt so alone, and this relief opened the door to new possibilities. Spiritist teachings helped me interpret these events not as mere coincidences, but as loving providence. Emmanuel said, "No one walks alone," and these words came alive in my experience. I began to believe that every meeting and every sign had a purpose, even if I could not fully understand it yet. This perspective renewed my hope and made me realize that spirituality never abandons those who suffer. Gradually, I found more energy to accomplish small daily tasks. Tidying the house, taking care of myself, organizing paperwork. Things that once felt unbearable were now done with more ease. I saw these simple actions as exercises in rebuilding, a training of the soul to reconstruct not only external life but inner life as well. Hope was like a gentle breath, enough to set me in motion again. In that moment, I understood that starting over doesn't begin with grand achievements, but with small steps. Clara, the woman who thought herself defeated, was learning to walk again. The losses still hurt, but they no longer dominated my life. There was a new willingness inside me, a quiet yet firm courage growing each day. And in this awakening, I realized that faith could be the foundation to sustain this new path. When I realized that small signs were guiding me, I understood that I needed something deeper to support my new beginning. That's when faith stopped being just a distant word and became a living practice in my daily life. I began setting aside moments of silence to pray, not asking for wealth or instant solutions, but for strength to endure and wisdom to learn. Each prayer seemed to lighten the weight on my heart, bringing a serenity I could find nowhere else. I discovered that prayer didn't change the external problems, but transformed the way I faced them. Instead of feeling like a victim, I began to see myself as a student of circumstances. Tears still fell, but now they were accompanied by calm hope. It was as if, by raising my thoughts to God, I received an invisible answer, a silent comfort. Faith showed me I was not abandoned, and that every challenge had a higher purpose. I also began studying Spiritist teachings more deeply. The Gospel according to Spiritism became my daily companion. Each chapter seemed written for me, as if the pages knew my pain and my search for meaning. I discovered that true wealth is not in material possessions, but in the inner peace that comes from trust in God and the practice of goodness. This understanding opened new horizons for a mind previously trapped by fear and insecurity. Faith began teaching me that difficulties are not punishments, but opportunities. Emmanuel said that pain is a school of improvement, and this idea became part of me. Every challenge was a lesson, every fall an invitation to overcome. It wasn't easy to accept, but when my mind embraced this perspective, I felt a new force propelling me. It was as if wings that had been broken were slowly mending, allowing me to soar once again. I realized that faith is not just belief, it is action. It's not enough to wait for help from above. One must move forward, even with small steps. I began to bring discipline into my routine, caring for my body and mind, choosing carefully what nourished my spirit. This practical approach brought a sense of responsibility and, at the same time, freedom. I was no longer a prisoner of the crisis. I was a student of it. This discovery changed the way I saw everything. Prayer and study became firm anchors in the storms. On days when fear returned, I turned to these practices and found balance. Faith was the invisible foundation supporting every new step. I, Clara, who once saw only ruins, now saw possibilities. I didn't have answers to everything, but I felt God walking with me, and that certainty was worth more than any lost wealth. This is how I began to build a new foundation for my life, not one of illusions or appearances, but of trust, prayer, and learning. Clara, the woman who thought herself defeated, discovered that faith could be the pillar sustaining her entire reconstruction. I no longer needed to rely solely on what the external world offered, because I had found within me a connection to the eternal. And in this encounter, I began to awaken to something greater, my forgotten talents. With faith strengthening my steps, I began to look at myself more closely. That's when I realized that behind the losses, there was still something no one could take away. My abilities, my gifts, my creative potential. I remembered how, when I was younger, I loved sewing, painting, and writing short texts. I had abandoned these passions in the rush of life, but now, in the silence and need to start over, these talents were knocking on my heart once again. I decided to give those memories a chance. I retrieved an old box of forgotten materials, threads, fabrics, paints. At first, my hands trembled, as if I had forgotten how. But gradually, practice brought back a simple, almost childlike joy. While sewing or painting, I forgot for a few moments about debts and worries. I felt alive again, connected to something beyond circumstances. It was as if spirituality were inspiring me to reclaim my essence. I realized these talents were not just hobbies, but gifts from God meant to help me rebuild my life. The Spirit's book teaches that every being carries aptitudes that need to be developed, and I saw this truth confirmed in myself. Everything that had been suppressed by external pressures now blossomed like a forgotten garden, ready to bear fruit. This rediscovery filled me with hope and renewed belief in my ability to move forward. I began dedicating daily time, even just a few hours, to these gifts. First, it was just therapy, care for a weary soul. But soon I realized there was potential for more. Friends and family began praising my creations, valuing what I produced. What had started as a personal refuge was becoming a tangible path to rebuilding. Life was showing me a new way, emerging from what I had always carried within me. This discovery taught me that the answers we seek are often within us, asleep. I had spent so much time chasing external goals that I forgot to cultivate my inner wealth. Now, forced by crisis to look inward, I saw I was not empty, just disconnected from what truly strengthened me. This realization gave me a sense of autonomy and gratitude. I had lost much, but I had not lost myself. Each awakened talent was also a spiritual lesson. I understood that nothing in life is accidental. The gifts we possess are instruments to serve, grow, and contribute to the world. I realized it wasn't enough to develop these abilities solely for myself. I needed to share them, multiply them, turn them into something useful for others. This thought ignited a new spark. Solidarity could be the next stage of my journey. Thus, Clara, the woman who believed she was defeated, began to see herself not just as a survivor, but as a creator. Awakening her talents brought joy and opened doors for her to find her place in the world differently. Life had not taken everything from me. It had invited me to discover what had always been within me. And at this point I understood that by sharing I could transform my existence even further. When I realized that my hands no longer carried just pain, but also the possibility to create, I understood that starting over was not a solitary path. At first, it seemed as though only I bore the marks of loss, and no one could understand the weight of what I had experienced. However, by offering the little I knew, I discovered that everyone carries their own pain, and when we share our talents and gestures of kindness, life brightens for everyone. I began dedicating myself to what knowledge I still had. I prepared small crafts, simple recipes, and even tips on organization, things that seemed trivial compared to the vastness of life, yet resonated in people's hearts. Before long, some came to me seeking help or simply a moment of conversation. And it was in this act of giving that I realized something greater. Solidarity does not impoverish, it multiplies. Every grateful glance returned something I thought I had lost: confidence in myself. Gradually, the emptiness that once seemed infinite was filled with invisible bonds, woven by empathy and the sincere desire to help. I discovered that by sharing I was not only strengthening others, but also nurturing my own soul. It was as if the weight that had crushed me was shared, and suddenly I was no longer walking alone. I began to understand that life gains meaning when love expands beyond our own limits. What once seemed merely a survival tool became a quiet mission of support. With each act of solidarity, I saw that pain could be transformed into a bridge, connecting me to others who, like me, sought refuge in mutual understanding. And in this movement, I realized that no one is saved alone. It was in this awakening that I grasped a profound truth. Solidarity is a spiritual force. When we extend a hand, we not only support another, but allow divine energy to flow through us. It is not about grand deeds, but about the simplicity of being present, offering a piece of what you have, looking into someone's eyes with sincerity. There, in the meeting of fragile souls supporting each other, I found the true meaning of starting over. I learned that rebuilding life does not happen all at once. It is a slow process, made of small daily actions, often imperceptible to hurried eyes. Each morning I managed to get out of bed with energy was a victory. Each completed task, even the simplest, was a step on the ladder of recovery. I realized I didn't have to achieve everything at once. It was enough to move forward even a little each day. In the beginning, discipline was what sustained me. I established routines that helped me maintain balance, like organizing the house, caring for myself, and dedicating time to the work that emerged. These were small actions, but they brought order to the internal chaos that still visited me. Gradually, I realized that consistency is the silent key that opens doors haste could never reach. Of course, difficulties didn't disappear. Moments of uncertainty, financial worries, and painful memories still tried to pull me back into despair. But now something had changed. I no longer felt like a hostage to pain. Within me, there was a spark of hope reminding me that every effort was an investment in my own freedom. It was in this steady rhythm, step by step, that I began to notice concrete transformations. What once seemed like ruin now showed signs of life. A smile returning to my face, a small achievement at work, a peaceful night of sleep after so long. Simple things, but together they formed a solid foundation for my new journey. I finally understood that starting over does not require haste, but perseverance. With every small advance, I recognized that I was being reborn. And this awareness gave me the strength to continue, because I no longer saw pain as an enemy, but as part of the process leading me to a more authentic and true life. With each step, the future ceased to be a threat and became a promise. Looking back, I realized that the crisis was not just a fall but a kind of portal. It forced me to traverse inner territories I would never have visited if everything had stayed the same. It was painful, yes, but also revealing. I discovered that my life did not need to be defined by the endless pursuit of material security or the approval of others. Something much greater was waiting to be lived. Gradually, I came to understand that true wealth is not in what we possess, but in who we are. Inner peace, serenity in the face of challenges, and the simple joy of serving others became more valuable than any external achievement. This new perspective freed me from the weight of comparisons and expectations, creating space for a deeper purpose to blossom within me. This purpose was born from a sincere desire to be useful. The experiences of pain I endured made me more sensitive to the suffering of others. I began to see in people not just unknown faces, but stories similar to mine, filled with falls and new beginnings. It was as if each encounter reminded me that we are all on the same evolutionary path, learning and growing together. I realized that sharing even the little I had, time, attention, or words of encouragement, brought me unexpected joy. Helping someone rise also restored my own confidence in the future. It was a cycle of giving and receiving, a silent exchange that filled a void I had once tried to cover with fleeting things. I understood that my purpose didn't need to be grand in the eyes of the world, but authentic to my soul. To serve, to learn, to create, to grow. All of it formed a mosaic connecting me to the greater meaning of life. The crisis had brought me to the depths, but it was there that I discovered the source of a new path. And now, more than ever, I feel the courage to follow it with faith and hope. Today, when I look back, I see that the losses that once hurt me so deeply were, in fact, seeds of transformation. Each fall taught me something. Each tear watered the ground where hope began to grow again. It was neither an easy nor a quick process, but it was real, profound, and true. I discovered that pain can be a bridge, not a prison, when we open ourselves to the lessons it brings. What once seemed like failure revealed itself as liberation. I am no longer the same person who began this journey. I carry scars, it's true, but they are not marks of defeat. They are reminders that I survived, that I had the courage to keep going when everything seemed lost. Each healed wound is also a testament to the strength I didn't know I possessed. Starting over didn't return me to my old life. It gave me a new one, more conscious, simpler, and connected to what truly matters. I learned to walk without fear of the future, trusting that there is always a higher purpose supporting each step. I discovered that faith is not escape, but strength, not illusion, but a light guiding even through the darkest valleys. Today I feel gratitude even for the pain. It showed me that nothing is permanent, that everything passes, and that the soul is always called to be reborn. I understood that true victory is not in never falling, but in rising as many times as necessary. And each new beginning brings a strength greater than the one we had before the fall. I am grateful for having lost so much because it is how I gained everything that truly matters. I learned that the strength of starting over is, in reality, the strength of life insisting on moving forward. And as long as there is a new dawn, there will always be the opportunity to rewrite your own story. And that is exactly what I choose to do. Start over always. Clara's journey shows us that life is made of cycles, and every challenge brings the opportunity for growth. Losing everything does not mean the end. On the contrary, it is an invitation to look inward and rediscover dormant strengths. When understood through the lens of Spiritism, suffering becomes a school for refinement and inner transformation. We learn that true wealth is not in material accumulation, but in inner peace, faith, and the ability to serve others. Emmanuel reminds us that pain is a divine agent of transformation, and Clara is living proof that faith and acts of goodness lead to renewal. Every step taken, every gesture of solidarity, and every talent awakened are rungs on the ladder of evolution. By sharing her experience, Clara inspires us not to fear falling, but to see setbacks as bridges to a more conscious new beginning. Daily effort, discipline, patience, and trust in God are the foundations that support each new stage. True rebirth comes from the courage to continue, even when all seems lost, and the ability to transform pain into learning. May this story awaken in you the courage to face your own challenges with faith and hope. Allow yourself to recognize your talents, value supporting others, and find meaning in life's trials. The journey of starting over is unique, but the path of spiritual growth is accessible to anyone willing to walk it with sincerity and love. If this message touched your heart, share this video and bring hope to those in need. Reflect on your own life, on the small steps that can transform your present and open doors to a fuller future. Remember, the strength to start over is within you, and every day is a new opportunity to be reborn.